Jeff Risdon. Jeff, man, welcome back
Hey
to
guys.
the show.
Thanks for having me. This is actually the 1-year anniversary of me taking over Draft Wire, so it's good timing to have me on. So always good to be with you.
And the content has gotten better at the Draft
I hope
Wire
so.
since Jeff Risdon has taken over. Let me say that. All right, so Jeff, we were talking trades, so we'll come right out of the chute with this one. Lions involved in a trade this week, acquiring Carlton Davis over from Tampa Bay. And they get a 6th this year and a 6th next year and give up the 3rd this year going to Tampa Bay. What about this trade do you like, dislike, or are you indifferent?
I like it a lot. The Lions' biggest need on defense is outside cornerback. They just got a really good one. He was a little bit of a misfit in Tampa. They played way too much zone for what he's good at. He's a man-to-man, aggressive, in-your-face, I'm going to pop you with the line, and I'm going to control your release type of man-cover guy. It's exactly what Detroit wants. Tampa didn't use that. Good player, bad spot. It happens a lot in the NFL. That's why I think there should be more trades. And the fact that they gave back 2 picks in it's 6th-round picks, obviously, but that's interesting to me because that almost makes it seem like it was more of Tampa trying to get rid of him actively. Like we're almost paying you to, like obviously the 3rd round pick, and by the way, it's number 92, which is the 91st selection because Miami got whacked for tampering. But we have to keep with the numbering system up, otherwise I go crazy because I can't ever keep track of it. But I digress. I think it's I'm very happy as a Lions fan for it. If I'm a Buccaneers fan, I'm thinking, okay, Jamel Dean better step up, and that 3rd round pick or something better than that had better be going towards a cornerback to replace him because they don't have that right now, and that's kind of a need. You can never have too many good cornerbacks. Detroit proved that last year when they started Kindle Vildor, who might not start in the UFL in playoff games because everybody else either got hurt or sucked, and that's why they needed a move like this so badly.
Was there any truth to them being interested in bringing in Marshawn Lattimore from New Orleans?
I don't know that. It certainly makes sense. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, the head coach and defensive coordinator, respectively, coached him in New Orleans. He's probably available. I think it's probably the nice way to say it. You'd probably know that better than I would. I think he probably is available. I don't know if they're in that. I think the Saints would want more than what Davis coaxed in return. So maybe, but I know they were interested in Greg Newsome. I shouldn't say it. I know they talked to the Browns about Greg Newsome's availability. I don't know the extent of those conversations, but I do know they talked. I can even tell you who talked and when they talked, but that clearly didn't go anywhere. And they are very strongly linked to L'Jarius Sneed still. I don't know how much I buy that anymore, but if you want to spend your 2nd round pick on L'Jarius Sneed, yeah, give me, please.
Well, let's talk about some of the other signings the Lions did. They've been beefing up this defense. Amik Robertson, another corner from the Las Vegas Raiders, who has had a lot of early success and still pretty young. And Marcus Davenport, big defensive line signing. How do you feel about those? How are those fits with the Lions and what they needed?
So for me, Davenport is a reclamation project flyer, and they actually paying him a little bit more than I would pay for that. But maybe other teams were interested in doing that. Look, he went to Minnesota last year and did not play well, and then he got hurt. And he had one really nice season in New Orleans where he cleaned up a whole lot of pressures that Cam Jordan created, and the rest of the time he was either hurt or not quite achieving there. So for a former 1st-round pick, he's physically talented. He fits their athletic profile that they want. They like big dudes who can set an edge and then rush the passer secondarily, especially on that side opposite Aiden Hutchinson. So it's worthwhile. It's more than I would pay, but I'm not going to quibble about it. They lost. So this offseason, they got rid of both Romeo and Julian Okwara and Charles Harris. So there's a lot of roster space there. So it's not like they're not going to take somebody just because they signed Marcus Davenport. So in that sense, I'm okay with it. I love Amik Robertson. Brian knows this. I am a sucker for plucky corners. small guys. I love them. They are my weakness. And he is short, not small. He's 5'9" in cleats, probably 190 pounds. But the fight to size of dog ratio in that dude is off the freaking charts, and I love that. He's an outside corner who's 5'8", so you got to have some edge to you. He's a very good tackler. He's a very good leaper. If you watched him play against the Packers, you'll see that he thieved a pass from Christian Watson, who's like 7 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier than him. He outleaped him for that. Like, I pointed it above him. So there's a lot of things to like about that. I'm not sure that the Raiders were the most conducive environment for anybody to succeed, but I'm very happy about that. So that, between that and Davis coming in, they've definitely upgraded the secondary and the corners specifically. That's where they needed to go. So I'm happy with that.
What's up with Louisiana Tech just producing these rock solid, undersized corners? It's wild to me.
It's what they do.
So Jeff, we've talked about the present. We're going to talk about the future of the Lions in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the past here. You're a longtime Lions fan. You got that close, man, to the promised land. How did it feel to get there and then just fall and just, I don't want to call it a collapse, but the second half of the NFC Championship game, not ideal.
That was unpleasant. And that was a frustrating time because and I think what made it really frustrating was that they were so damn good in the first half. My God, like I'm in there. So I'm a co-host of the Detroit Lions podcast, and we're watching that together in my hotel room in Mobile. We're getting ready for the Senior Bowl week, and I'm like, do we order Super Bowl like plane tickets now? Like, do we book our travel now? We're like, well, we'll hold off on that, and probably a good thing we did because that was rough. But I will say, I was alive and I was an adult actually the first time that they won a playoff game, which was in 1991. Then after the 91 season, that was their only previous win in a postseason game in the Super Bowl era. I didn't get to watch that game. I was in college at the time. I was working that day, and I didn't get to see it. And I've never seen it like uninterrupted. So I had never tasted Detroit Lions playoff victory. I'm over 50 years old. I'm like, so from that standpoint, that first game, that was unreal. It was one of those, it was like a communal experience too, because so many of us have been suffering for so long. And the fact that they got it done, and the fact that they got it done against Matthew Stafford was not insignificant either. But that was just laying on the floor, crying, like tears coming out of my eyes, but I couldn't make any noise. I'm just like, I didn't know what to do. And I hope to get that feeling again soon.
It's wild how, as a Bengals fan and you as a Lion, how those two fan bases are so similar and what they've been through in life. And like you said, that's the only game I've ever been to in Cincinnati was their wild card win over the Raiders, ending the 31-year snide, and just it's so wild. Shane, let's get us back on track here. What do you got for Jeff?
Yeah, let's get into the draft, Jeff, and
right.
You've been going through the process, obviously with a Lions perspective here. What do you think their approach is going to be to this draft? What has been kind of, now we have some historical data for what Brad Holmes likes to do. What type of players do they like? What do they value? And how do you think that plays out in this draft?
Yeah, so last year threw a lot of curveballs at a lot of people because, just as an example, Brad Holmes in his time in Los Angeles and in Detroit had never even considered a first-round linebacker before. And they took Jack Campbell at 18. They took a running back at 12. Some of us knew they were pretty high on Jahmyr Gibbs, and we also knew that DeAndre Swift was not long for Detroit. So that wasn't like totally shocking, but the first-round linebacker was pretty darn shocking. So we're kind of open to anything, They tend to value grit. If you've watched the Dan Campbell press conference, you know what he's all about. But they want people who live, breathe, die football. They're going to give you every ounce of their being between the white lines. They're going to practice as hard as they can. They're going to be smart football players. So they're not. This is not a team where you're going to have to like explain the overtime rules to anybody on the team in the playoffs. Like, they're going to know it when they walk out that coin flip. They are going to be players that want to be coached and want to get better. Their team emphasis as a coaching staff is on player development. So they value the draft. They value guys that have upside, athletic upside, and also like maybe they just weren't in the right situation in college, and they find that in the pros. So they're looking at that. The athleticism does matter. Length, not so much at cornerback or defensive end. Especially arm length, like Aiden Hutchinson. People used to make the memes of him with T-Rex arms. Well, now they're laughing, huh? So athletic profiles, they tend, if you want to refer to Kent Platt's Math Bombs RAS, they tend to get guys over 7. They like guys that are even higher than that. But one defining trait, they are not a team that looks at 40 times. They are very invested in the GPS timed. And that's, you guys know this from working with DraftCon. Like, that information is sometimes hard to get, and it's not always reliable when you get it. So you got to be a little bit careful with what you see on that. But that's kind of what they're looking at. So that's their players. But again, Aiden Hutchinson is a great example. Brian Branch is a great example of a prototypical Lion. Smart, confident, lives, breathes football. Very high football IQ and high intensity player.
100%. I wish we got some of that GPS data. That would be very helpful for us. But we are very invested in Raz over here at the Draft Countdown. So for sure, and that's good information to know. All right, so let's pivot away. You have had some takes on this quarterback class coming up. So let's put the Draft Wire hat on and not the Lions Wire hat.
All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not all in on Caleb Williams, right?
I am not. I will say unequivocally, he has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft, and he has a higher ceiling than any quarterback last year too. And I really, really liked CJ Stroud. Caleb Williams could be better than him, but my God, the margin for error with this dude and how low he can go if he doesn't quickly get rid of some seriously bad traits, it's rough. It's hard because, so I'll rewind a little bit. I covered Baker Mayfield when he came out of Oklahoma and the Lincoln Riley system and went to Cleveland, and I was there for the first couple of training camps that he was there. And him having to unlearn everything that Lincoln Riley basically taught him about how to play quarterback before he could become a good NFL player, it was stark and it was real. I saw that with my own 2 eyes. Heard similar things about what's going on with Kyler in Arizona. Like, they have to unteach him so many things that Lincoln Riley has stressed to succeed in the NFL. And I look at Caleb Williams, and I don't see the work ethic that I saw in Baker or Kyler, for that matter. I don't see as much of an acknowledgement that he's flawed. I don't think he thinks that he has to do these things. And that's, some of that's obviously conjecture on my part, but some of it's from I've talked to people that know him, that know the USC program, and they're like, he works, but his definition of what hard work is and what the NFL's definition of hard work is might not be the same, and maybe he can elevate it. And if he does, he'll be fantastic. But if he doesn't learn that a 5-step drop means you drop and that ball comes out every time from the same spot at the same time, he's not going to last in Chicago. That market's rough on quarterbacks. I will say that as somebody who lives within earshot of it. They are always looking for reasons to kill their quarterback in Chicago in the media. Baker Mayfield handled that very well in Cleveland. I think Kyler has done a pretty good job with that. I will say Russell Wilson, who is the player that Caleb Williams reminds me most of, did a very good job of handling that in Seattle. Although they're kind of sycophantic fans, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I kind of appreciate that. He's somewhere between Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield for me. And if you put those two hands together and you get the best of Caleb Williams, he's going to be better than both those guys. But he can also, if he doesn't get better at some things quickly, getting the ball out on time, understanding that when to get out of a play, understanding that you can throw the ball away and it's not a bad thing, or take a sack and it's not a bad thing. You can keep the trains on time instead of, having them crash 3 times and then have to, make this spectacular, leaping jump over a chasm. He doesn't take layups, and that's frustrating to me. And it's wild to me that Chicago is so enamored with him, because that's what they hate about Justin Fields. He can't do those things. And Caleb can't do them either. I don't get that one. So I like him as a player overall. He's a top 15 pick for me, but there's a lot of room for error with him. A lot of margin for boom bust with him. More than a lot of other quarterbacks, probably more than any since Josh Allen. Now, obviously, Josh Allen worked out damn good for Buffalo. So, if he turns out to be that kind of guy, that's great. Chicago's been damn good for a long time. But I wouldn't be super confident about that if I were a Bears fan or a Bears employee trying to select him. I know that puts me in a minority, but
it does. So you're not taking Caleb Williams and you're Chicago. Who is Jeff Risdon? Who is GM Risdon taking with the number 1 pick?
I'm thinking Marvin Harrison, but I'm keeping Justin Fields. So they're not doing that, so I'm clearly not it. If I'm taking a quarterback and I have to, if I'm them, I'm taking Jaden Daniels, because I think his maturity and his growth that he's shown, and his ability to handle, LSU is a high pressure environment. That's a professional football team that happens to be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, playing in the SEC. But his growth, the fact that he's overcome the things that he needed to do to be as successful as to win the Heisman Trophy, the fact that he can successfully manage a highly talented group around him, I don't think that gets talked up enough about C.J. Stroud and why he was successful last year, was because at Ohio State, he had to manage a lot of professional egos. He had experience dealing with that kind of stuff before. Jaden Daniels has that. Caleb does a little bit to some extent, but I value that about Jaden. Now, the fact that he's 185-ish and has been, I watched the Arizona State tape. I've seen him get hit. I worry about that too. I just think that if I were trying to rebuild a franchise around any one of these quarterbacks, it would be Jaden Daniels.
I think it's fair, and I kind of think the NFL sees Daniels a lot higher than the consensus does. I think he's maybe closer to Caleb Williams than Drake may in a lot of circumstances. So I'm kind of with you on that. Yeah, well, let's get some more positives. One of the things I always like every time you come on the show, Jeff, is hearing about kind of your guys. As you're at the Senior Bowl, you've scouted the combine, you're going through this process, and I think you're always spot on and accurate about some of your, even day 2, day 3 guys that you really like. You have such a good eye for it. So I definitely want you to give you the floor. If there's any players that you've kind of fallen in love with here in this process, to wax poetic about them.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that, because I just started a draft today of the My Guys column, and there were 2 guys that were very top of mind. Chris Abrams-Drain, the cornerback from Missouri, the one that doesn't get the love that Ennis Rakestraw gets, and I don't exactly get that, but I love Chris Abrams-Drain. I wish he was 182 pounds, but he's not. But again, small cornerback who plays bigger than he is, a lot of bark and a lot of bite. Yeah, sign me up for that guy. And then the other one is Christian Mahogany, the ass kicker from Boston College. To call him a guard just doesn't do him justice. He's a snowplow with fangs. He's got some flaws to his game. I'm not delusional. He's not the number 1 guard in this draft. There's a lot of really good guards in this draft. I just love the way that he's just going to bury you and be happy about it. There's just something primal about that. I'm a big Wyatt Teller fan with the Cleveland Browns. I just love watching that guy. He's just going to go and destroy you. And I don't know. I like that.
All right. I always love talking about the MAC with you too. So you're an OU guy, and he's not an OU guy. but you have to beam a little bit when one of the top, if not the top cornerback and one of the top prospects in this draft class is a Toledo Mac guy in Quinyon Mitchell. Now, my man up there, Shane, he's been on top of this. He's been driving this Quinyon Mitchell train since about week 1. But how much do you like the fact that a Mac guy is probably going to be the top corner in this class?
I love it. I will say he didn't face a single future NFL receiver in the MAC at any point in his career. So that's a little concerning. Like I'm a MAC lover, but I'm not a MAC delusional Kool-Aid drinker. Sam Wiglish might be the best wide receiver that he faced, and God bless Sam. He did great things for you, but I don't think he's making the NFL. But the athletic testing, the attitude. So we interviewed him down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and I was wearing an Ohio U hat. And as he comes up to me, and I introduce myself, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Jeff," and he's like, "You go to OU?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Sorry about kicking y'all's ass." I'm like, that's just like, I want that. Like, he was nice about it, but he meant it too. Like, yeah, we got you. Like, I'm looking down on you because you went there. I'm like, that's the mentality you want in a corner. Like, he wants to beat you. I like that. So I'm very gung-ho on him. It wouldn't shock me if he's the first defensive player taken. I think Dallas Turner will probably get that nod, but I don't know, man. Quinyon is really good. And the player I compare him to is Darius Slay, who I covered for a long time in Detroit, who I loved coming out of Mississippi State. And Darius, and I think this might actually be true with Quinyon too. Now, Darius was a second-round pick. I think Quinyon might struggle a little bit early on in his NFL career just because he hasn't faced that level of competition, and like the consistency of the speed and size and accuracy of the quarterbacks and receivers that are be coming at him. It's going to take him a little bit of an adjustment period. And it did that for Darius Slay. But then after about 12 games of the rookie year, you had a perennial Pro Bowl player that you could rely on consistently. And I think that's what Quinyon's going to be. So I love the fact that he's getting all the hype. He deserves it.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's been rock solid. I agree with you. It might be a little struggle early, but hopefully, if you have a good defensive coordinator, good secondary coaching camp, hopefully can get the most out of him. Stake your claim, Jeff. Who are the Lions taking in round 1 this year? Give me your prediction. Free agency isn't even over yet, but I got to put you on the spot. And because if you nail it, we get to clip it forever. So
wow. Well, let's see. So they're picking 29. First off, I don't think they're married to picking 29, so that makes it a little tough. It's a lot easier when it was between like Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like no one or two. Like which one are they taking? Like that one. That one was pretty easy. We kind of knew that they liked Hutchinson, the hometown guy. They need, in some particular order, after the first days of free agency, they still need a starting offensive guard because they still only have one. Jonah Jackson's gone. They need a defensive tackle, but I don't think they value defensive tackle there. I would love Johnny Newton out of Illinois. He would be another one that I would throw in the my guys list, as would be his teammate, offensive lineman Isaiah Adams. And I do think that the Lions will be drafting him later, like 4th, 5th round, because they also need depth on the interior and exterior. There's a guy you can draft, and he can play every position for you but center. And you get him in the 4th, 5th round. That's great value. If you don't have to start him, that's great. They do still need I'm not sure that they see a guy like Darius Robinson as that valuable to take him at 29, but he's certainly in play. But my personal pick, I would pick Cooper Beebe. I don't think they're going to take him there. Oh boy. Before Georgia's pro day today, I thought Kamari Lassiter might be a pretty good one, but when you run 4.64, and again,
is that what you're hearing? Because I saw conflicting. I saw some with a 4.51, 4.52, and I saw Brugler saying 4.61. So I'm curious to see where that actually comes out.
Yeah, I am too. And I've been out of the pocket, so I haven't been able to keep up with that. But I do know that Georgia does do the chip thing in their shoulder pads. So there is GPS timing out there somewhere. Hopefully any of us can get it. And if I get it, I'll share it with you. If you guys get it, you can share it with me. That'd be great. I don't know if he's going to be. So I'm going to go Darius Robinson. Darius Robinson probably makes the most sense. He's a Detroit guy. He is a versatile defensive lineman, which they covet. He can take over that role for Josh Paschal and Romeo Okwara, who's kind of filled in that role. I don't know. He doesn't excite me as much as I'd want to, and maybe that'll be why they take him, because I wasn't super excited about Jack Campbell. He was my number 35 player, and they took him 18. Still playing out. So far, so good. They nailed Brian Branch. They nailed Sam Laporta. They got my guy Hendon Hooker in the third last year. I'm pretty happy about that. They are too. So yeah, I'm thinking Darius Robinson is probably my early bet right now for who they would take it at 29. But I'm not married to them staying at 29. I don't think they are. Which way do they go? I don't know, man. I wish I did.
Hey, man, they've taken some big swings up before. Maybe they take a big swing up for Jackson Powers Johnson.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I would be unable to wear pants for a certain amount of time.
Well, on that note, Jeff, we'll let you get out of here and go think about that for a little while. Maybe take a cold shower.
I might need it.
Jeff, man, we love your work at Draft Wire. We love your work at Lions Wire, and I love listening to you and Chris on the Detroit Lions podcast. The Lions aren't my team, but y'all are very informative about everything, so I like to listen into you guys as well.
Appreciate that.
I didn't tell everybody. I told everybody where they can find you, but I'll let you do that as well.
Yeah, you can find me at Draft Wire. It's on my name under there at USA Today, Wire sites. I also run Lions Wire, the Detroit Lions podcast. Look it up on YouTube. We have episodes coming fairly frequently. Actually, we are normally recording at this time right now, but logistically it didn't work this week, so we're recording on Saturday. So tune in, and it's fun. We have a lot of fun with it, and we get some good guests on there too. So maybe we'll even get you guys to come on. Brian, I think you've been on, haven't you?
I have not, but I would love to.
We got to get that. You guys are smart. We like smart people, and you guys are smart. So we got to get you to come on. So,
we appreciate that.
I will bid you guys adieu. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Jeff,
thanks, Jeff. Man. It was awesome, man. Appreciate it.